Good afternoon, everybody. A big thank you to Aziza for this extraordinary day and for all of your incredible work. And to David and to Dr. Namazika. We're so grateful and very blessed to be with all of you today. I want to say a special word to Suzy about Suzy and Wally and their incredible philanthropy, which is responsible for building some of the most extraordinary institutions in this city and throughout the world. We're so grateful to you. Wally came to IKAR years ago before he died, and at the end of a very raucous Friday night service where I was nervously watching him, I went over to say Shabbat Shalom, and he said, "I don't understand what's going on in here, but clearly the young people like it." So we're so grateful to you, Suzy, and thank you for all of this support. This work between Muslims and Jews is more important now than ever, as we all know. And we do this work because it's right. And now, after a decade of working together to build these relationships in this city, we do it not only out of a sense of obligation, but also out of a sense of love. We know that NewGround matters even more now than ever. I am here to introduce Melissa Balaban to us all. I met the amazing Melissa Balaban and her crotchety but ultimately truly decent and loving husband, Adam Wergeles, late one night in April of 2004. A few hours later, we all decided to cast our lots with one another, and I think it's fair to say that that changed all of our lives forever. For years, Melissa has been calling our first meeting a shotgun wedding, which is a way of describing a wedding that happens before anyone finds out that the bride is already pregnant. This was surely an event that shared that sense of immediacy, but it's probably not the best metaphor for our origin story, even though it did foreshadow some of the work that we would later do together on gun violence prevention. But I think that a slightly more accurate construct is what's called in Hebrew chaver lidea. Rambam, in his commentary on Pirkei Avot, says that there are multiple levels of friendship, starting with the most utilitarian, moving to the deeply caring, those who offer comfort and support and don't run when things get ugly, and ultimately culminating in the highest form, rarely achieved, the pinnacle of friendship called the chaver lidea, a friend who is truly a partner, who shares your values, who stretches your heart to help you deepen your own vision of what's possible in the world, and then works with you every single day to achieve it. This is a friend who doesn't let you off the hook, who tells you when you can do better, who demands of you that you show up with your fullest and truest self because she knows that your shared work in the world demands nothing less. And on top of all of that, this is a person who makes you laugh and sometimes cry, who cooks your favorite French onion soup like a pro, and somehow when you're sick always shows up with fresh raspberries and the exact right smoothie before you even ask. I have never had a friend like Melissa Balaban before. None of us has ever known anybody like Melissa before. She is, to be sure, a blessing from the Holy One and a force of nature. Long before I knew her, Melissa was on bed rest for the last several weeks of a hard pregnancy. I have tried many times to reconcile the image of this woman in her pajamas in bed surrounded by fashion magazines with the person that we all know so well today. Indomitable, inexhaustible, and always ready to take on an additional 6-mile run before her 6 a.m. CrossFit training class, which she does while on vacation. Trailblazer seems to me the perfect award for Melissa. There's a story that Martin Buber used to tell of the famous Rabbi Suzy, who was once on his way to synagogue to conduct important business when he passed someone whose wagon had broken down. The man, and of course they're always all men in these stories, asked the rabbi for help in lifting up his broken down wagon so that he could replace the wheel on the axle. "I can't," said Rabbi Suzy, "I just can't." "Oh, you can," the man said. "You just don't think you can." This interaction changed Rabbi Zuzia's life. He began to weep, and he cried out, "Master of the universe, we can. We just don't believe that we can." The rest of us are so much like that rabbi. so aware of our limitations, physical and spiritual and emotional. But Melissa does not play by the same set of rules. She is fierce. She will run through a wall until there's a doorway for the rest of us to pass through. James Baldwin once said that those who say it can't be done are usually interrupted by others who are actually doing it. And Melissa doesn't just do it, she does it with grace, with beauty, and with deep sensitivity. We all know that we're living through terrifyingly destabilizing times. It's hard to hold a moral center when you're being thrown violently off course by every news alert, by every new revelation of an insult to justice and righteousness. It is in moments like this that we look to people like Melissa Balaban to reawaken our sense of what's possible, to remind us that we were born not to crawl, but to soar, to reignite in us a sense that we can get there, but only together. Years ago, I came across a poem from the British poet Christopher Logue, and I put it in a file called Melissa, not knowing exactly when I'd get a chance to share it. Today seems like the perfect opportunity. Come to the edge. We might fall. Come to the edge. But we're afraid. Come to the edge. So they came to the edge, and he pushed, and they flew. To a person who really believes in the goodness of other people, to someone who won't give up on the premise that nearly all conflicts can be resolved if reasonable people sit together and hear one another's stories and honor one another's pain and dream together of what is possible. To a woman who can put together an insane breakfast buffet blindfolded while drafting a $6 million grant application and taking multiple phone calls at once. To a mother whose teenage and millennial daughters actually not only appreciate and respect and love her, but also like her. To the community leader who would so much prefer honoring anyone else today rather than receive this honor herself. To my dearest friend in the world, to my Chavira Lidea, to my husband's sister wife, thank you for bringing us all to the edge, giving us just the push we need and helping us fly. You deserve the honor and the love today, Melissa. We thank you for all that you do, and much more importantly, for all that you are.
Okay, whose idea was it for me to follow Sharon? That was a horrible idea, but the truth is I've been following Sharon for the last 13 years, and I will continue to the end of earth because she's awesome and my rabbi and my dearest friend. And to my sister wife, David Light, who told me that I should use this opportunity to give a full rebuttal for why I shouldn't receive this award. And I was prepared to do that sort of point by point, but I won't. My friend Ellen told me that I should embrace it, so I will. The experience makes me uncomfortable. I'm a behind-the-scenes person by nature, and I'm pretty content there. So when Aziza and Paula first approached me on November 2nd, I was reluctant to accept it, and I most certainly didn't think I deserved it. On November 2nd, do you remember November 2nd? The world looked very different. It was after a brutal 18-month campaign that pandered really to our country's worst instincts. But we still thought that Hillary Clinton was going to be president, and we were going to move more towards justice, maybe more slowly than all of us want, but in that direction. And it was just unthinkable, really shocking for us to think that a man who made Islamophobia a centerpiece of his candidacy would become president of the United States. And yet here we are. So in the aftermath of the election, it became even clearer to me and to IKAR that we needed to double down on the increasingly critical work of dissolving the barriers that divide us and respond to the divisiveness of the political environment with love. So it's always been core to our mission, IKAR's mission, that our religious practice is fused with a commitment to narrowing the gap between the world as it is and the world as it should be. So at this particular moment, it's just such an incredible honor to support the extraordinary work of NewGround. So my journey with Muslim-Jewish relations actually began before I met NewGround. Back in 2007, my husband and I took our 2 daughters, who were then 13 and 9, on this crazy trip around the world to volunteer and see what the world was like out there. The first portion of our journey was in a very small village in Tanzania, and I worked very closely with a young Muslim man named Farahani. He was both my translator and my confidant as I worked in this very poor, really limited preschool. He had never met a Jew, and he was as deeply interested in learning about my culture, my experience, my religion as I was with his. It was truly a human encounter, and it was characterized by deep regard and curiosity, but no animosity. He invited us to his home to meet his family. He celebrated Shabbat with my family over grape juice and saltine crackers, which was the best we could do for Shabbat provisions in a small town in Tanzania. But it was really a beautiful relationship that we developed with each other's families. And because Tanzania is really untethered by the history of conflict between Jews and Muslims, the exchanges between us were really warm and open-hearted and just an absolute gift for all of us. So my first connection to NewGround was, I think, when Aziza came to my office and wanted us to co-sponsor the iftar celebration during Ramadan. I knew embarrassingly little about Ramadan, I hate to admit, but I was really privileged to be able to bring IKAR to that experience. And it was just an extraordinary experience. It was moving, it was packed with people, it was teeming with spirit and energy and a genuine desire among the participants for human interaction. Aziza and Rabbi Sarah Bassin brilliantly conceived of and presided over an exercise that you all probably are familiar with, in which we were supposed to find somebody that we don't know and spend a couple minutes speaking to each other and really hearing each other. And it was just a profound demonstration of what I guess I knew intellectually, but hadn't understood completely. We talked about that we really wanted the same things. We talked about the organized chaos of our daily lives, the hassles of finding good childcare, the challenges about work, feeling guilty about working too hard. We talked about our hopes and our dreams for our kids and our fears for our kids. And we talked about the things that make us human and vulnerable. As our shared tradition informs, each life has inestimable value, and these opportunities for our communities to work and learn and eat and struggle and laugh together give us windows into the inestimable value of the lives of those that others seek to demonize. So this is just the simple and magnificent work of NewGround. It has been an honor for IKAR to continue to be a part of these events and to work to deepen relationships with our Muslim brothers and sisters. So again, I could offer a rebuttal and a long list of people who, as Sharon said, deserve this far more than I do. But instead, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for your work. I want to thank Suzy Marks. I want to thank Aziza and Paula and Andrea and Mariam and David and Tazanim and everybody who worked incredibly hard to make this event so beautiful. To the other extraordinary honorees who are doing great work in this world, the day school, to Rebecca and Isha and the Aga Khan Council, to Rabbi Brous for the beautiful and mostly fabricated introduction, to my friends and my family and fellow IKARites who came and supported this really important cause, to all of my surrogate moms who showed up today to help assuage my mom's guilt for being out of town on a long-planned trip, to my husband, the curmudgeonly, long-suffering, but truly amazing behind-the-scenes guy, to this behind-the-scenes girl. But mostly, thank you to this organization for doing the exact work this world and our communities need most right now, creating deep and meaningful relationships between our people. Salam and shalom.